Listen, son, to all the sons out there. You can be anything you want to be. Keep God first and love yourself, love your family, and chase your dreams. Welcome to the Listen Son podcast.
Thank you for everybody coming to tune in to Listen Son podcast. It's going to be a beauty. This is definitely an episode you don't want to miss because there's so many genuine people on this call right now to just kind of talk about our testimony and our journeys with sports through Coach Stanley, Jay Stanley, and his son Nate Stanley. It's very important to make these connections with sports, and generally that's what it's all about. So once again, I'm Mike Bond Jr. If you have any way that you want to get in contact with us, please hit the Listen Son 414 at gmail.com up with any of your questions, anything, suggestions or topics that you want to talk about or you want talked about in the podcast. That would be great. Please follow all of our social media platforms so we can continue to reach young men who do not have fathers in their lives but are looking for some type of guidance. And ultimately just keep following along because it gets better and better each episode. So up there repping the Brew Crew, I believe we just got word that baseball is going to be back in session. My Uncle Rick in the Milwaukee Brewers gear, the deuces, Uncle Rick. We got my dad representing the Nike gear today. I like that. Was that one of the ones I got you for like Father's Day or your birthday, or not? That wasn't me?
No, that wasn't you.
Oh, all right, you look good in it. We got my boy Money.
Thank you anyway.
Yes, sir. We got my boy Money holding it down, DIAMONTE McKinley. And then right here, two special gentlemen, Coach Jay Stanley, nice to see you. And then we got Nate Stanley, nice to see you as well. So we like to go right into it. So I would just start every way we start every episode. Coach Stanley, why was it important for you to be a presence in your son's life or just a presence in the family dynamic? And then, what was the introduction to sports, not only for yourself, but for you as well, Nate? Or, why sports? What played a factor in that? So I'll let you guys take the floor.
Okay. Well, for me, I guess in college, I'm going to go back a little bit further probably than what you might want. But when I was going to college, initially, I thought about pleasing everybody else, pleasing parents and uncles and aunts and everybody that wanted me to go into medicine. And so I started my first semester in biology, but it really wasn't where my heart was. And to get into coaching a little more, without getting into a lot of details, my dad was a really important part of my life growing up in sports, but my dad was also an alcoholic. And when I got to high school, his alcoholism really turned a really bad corner. And my coaches in high school were the people that really became surrogate fathers for me. And as I looked at possible things, that I wanted to do in life, engineering, medicine, and then teaching and coaching, I really felt like my high school basketball coach was a man who really changed my life. And I thought, I could do all these things I want to do. I do the athletic training for us. I teach physics, so it's part of the engineering. But really, that heart and soul of it was about impacting lives, impacting young men's lives, and through teaching and coaching. And I also looked at it from the standpoint of being a father, that I would have the opportunity to be there at school with my kids throughout their formative years, all the way up till they graduated high school. So.
For me, sports has been in my life since I was born. From before I was born, my dad was the head high school basketball coach and then assistant football coach. So since before I can remember, I was the ball boy for the football and the basketball team. And that just really started my love for sports. And, growing up, I played with my older brother. And just that competitive spirit that I had when playing with my brother in older grades, really pushed me to show that I have some pretty cool opportunities and some pretty special abilities to continue a career past high school. so I think my journey started when I was 4 or 5 years old, and just getting my butt kicked every single day by my brother and the other guys that were helping out, the high school team, kind of drove me to push myself and be the best I could be. So, that's really where my journey has started, and hopefully that I can continue it for a while.
That's excellent. And a lot of people are probably wondering how does this podcast even come to happen with all of us on the same call. And my time coaching, not only with you, Coach Stanley, and coaching you, Nate, not directly, but at the same position, but just being a part of that was something special. But what I noticed when I joined the staff is it kind of gave me the home feeling. And my dad and Uncle Rick kind of talked about this addition, with I believe episode 1, what it was like to have each other to lean on with raising their sons in sports. And one of the things I noticed is, big shout out to Coach Labuda and what he has done over at Menominee and for giving me the opportunity to coach on the staff. I noticed it was him and Jace, you and Nate, and you had Luke, Coach Robbie, and Coach
Bundy.
Coach Bundy, and then Coach Stocky and Mason, and all. You guys had the same thing that we had back at home. So how pivotal was that? Did you guys ever talk about that? Like, hey, we have a chance to raise our sons together to go through the sports journey, and how important was that?
That was something we reflected on a lot, and I'm sure you were in on some of those conversations in the locker room, that sometimes the most entertaining part of our day was watching those guys play, tackle football without any pads on off to the sideline. I think sometimes those were more physical than our practices were, but it was really special, not only as a football coach, but as a basketball coach, to have the boys at practice with me. I mean, they would ride the bus from, they went to St. Paul's Lutheran School here in Menominee, and they'd ride the bus over to the high school, and they'd come find me wherever I was, or whether it was the gym or the football field or what have you. And so, yeah, it was amazing to have them out there. The other thing, I think it really taught them a lot of work ethic, because I expected them to do a good job, moving equipment around, and they got to see the game. I remember one time, I think Luke, our older son, he was looking at the scout defense, and we told him to get in a snake eyes front, and he goes, "Dad, what the heck is that? That's not snake eyes." And I think he was like 8 or 9 years old. And so having those guys be around the game and understand it from a whole different perspective, having learned on the move, from young children, was incredibly powerful. And I know Jace and Mason were the same way, and Robbie as well.
Good. So we're all from Milwaukee. You guys are from Menominee, and I know Money wanted to ask this question, so I'm gonna let Money ask this question for you guys.
Oh yeah. So, basically, this question is just y'all's already in a smaller town, city, like compared to me and Mike, and like Milwaukee, bigger. Like, did you feel like that was like a advantage or like a disadvantage that you were somewhere smaller? Like, were you not able to like showcase your talent as much, or did you feel like it was like a good thing that you was able to like more focus or something like that? How do you?
Yeah, I think with all the AAU basketball and travel baseball and 7-on-7s, I think that it didn't really make that much of a difference. Where I saw it was, I played 3 sports with a lot of the same guys, and I think those relationships that I had were just extremely close. People might be extremely close with their friends, but only play with them in one sport. If they go to a bigger school, or in a town like Milwaukee. So I felt that it helped me, because I was competing with the same guys, year round. But then also too, I had those opportunities to play travel basketball, travel baseball, and then those bigger 7-on-7 tournaments that we played in Minneapolis and Green Bay. So, I felt that, there really wasn't much of a difference, from my interpretation of it.
Good question.
Dad,
So,
how do you?
Yeah, go ahead, Money.
I was gonna say, Dad, how do you feel about it? Do you feel the same way, or?
Yeah, the biggest thing is that I tried to get all the kids to do was to, all three of my kids, our older daughter, she played sports as well and played at UW Oshkosh for a couple of years before nursing took her career really in a different path. But I wanted them to play everything. I wanted them to go year round, just for the social development, for the understanding how to work as a team, and to cross categorically, help them as athletes. I think so much today we see all this specialization, and Nate was WIA, athlete of the year his senior year because he played multiple sports. I think his baseball helped his football. I think his basketball helped his football. I think his football helped his basketball. And I think having the town where you don't have to specialize a lot of times can be a blessing. It can also sometimes be a curse. But I was pleased with what he did. So
I think to add in onto that, just looking at maybe the downside of it was, the summer times were extremely hard because you have three coaches asking you to do three different sports full time. And I remember a lot of times trying to pitch a Legion baseball game and then go play quarterback for 4 or 5 7-on-7 games, and which probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. So I think if there's one downside to it, I would say that as a younger kid, you want to please all your coaches, and you just have to learn how to say no and manage your time the best that you can to make sure that you're healthy for your competitive seasons when in the fall, the winter, and the spring. So that's one thing that I learned, that I had to learn pretty quickly. Playing 3 sports at a high level in high school, was to listen to my body, and then manage my time in the summer well.
Did you have your coach? I know you Money is thinking about getting into coaching, and we talked about it a little bit when I recently just seen him, but he also wants to talk to you, Coach Stanley, about it. And I won't speak for Money because I don't know what questions he wants to know directly. But go ahead, Money. I know you want to.
Oh, you want me to still keep going? I got you. So basically, my question is, as being a coach, looking at your background and everything, what advice would you give somebody like myself or anybody that's trying to get into coaching, or that's at the high school level, or that's trying to get to that college level of coaching?
The college level is tiered. I mean, like if you get into the Division IIIs, the NAIAs, I think you can get your foot in the door pretty well with those as an assistant, work your way into a full-time assistant, blah, blah, blah. Getting into the D1 level is really tough. It's really competitive. You got to go through the GA process. I guess the thing I would fall back on is this. The reason I got into coaching is the purpose of it. I could have made a lot more money if I would have been a research physicist or going into medicine, but I wake up every day and I know what my purpose is. It's to serve these young men and at times young women. I've coached women's sports at times too, but it's really it's a mission. It's a purpose. And if you have that, and you obviously have some athletic knowledge to go along with it, it's incredibly rewarding personally. High school is not very rewarding financially. When you work it out, it's like 10 cents an hour what we make in terms of the hours we put in. But I've got letters stashed away in a file that I pull out every now and then and read about what my high school basketball coach did for me. And now I've been able to turn that page and do that same thing for multiple young men and women, impact their lives in a meaningful way. That's priceless. Absolutely priceless.
And then basically just going off that question as well, do you feel like you'd like coaching your sons, like as in college or in high school at all?
I've dreamed about going to the next level, coaching in the college ranks, football. I've done it with women's basketball at the D3 level. I don't know. I think there's a time when you kind of have to cut the umbilical cord and let your kids kind of express themselves without you being there. I know there was a couple times where we bumped heads in a couple of football practices, where I told him do it this way, and he's like, "No, Dad, that's not what I'm supposed to do." I'm like, "Yes, it is. I've been coaching this offense longer than you've been alive." So, and there might have been an up down or two in there, but anyway, I think there was a time to kind of say, "Hey, I know you're prepared for the world," and hand them over to someone else. That was tough for sure, but it was also rewarding to see them with a good foundation that they have. All three of my kids really progress and excel without us there as parents.
Got you. I'm gonna go to you, Nate. Just really one question for you here. Just basically, when you got to college, I know I followed you a little bit. I know about you. It was always talked that you could have left a year earlier. Do you feel like when you came back, do you feel like, hey, like this is something that it was something that you need to work on, or is it something like you was like, hey, like you just wasn't ready? Like, what was your decision during that time?
Yeah, so the thought process before my junior year even started was, I would have to be a projected first round pick for me personally to leave, because I know that you can always go back to school, but academics is something that's always been stressed very highly. Obviously with my dad being a teacher, and my mom too, like they always have expressed to me is academics come first, and sports is a privilege. It's not a right. So I definitely wanted to finish my degree before I left school. But, I thought that I could have had a better year and that I could improve on some things. They have a draft review process where you can put your name in and get a grade. And then from NFL scouts, I ended up actually not putting my name even into that process because I felt that the input that I would have gotten was the exact same input that I got from my position coach and then Coach Ferentz. So there was some things, accuracy being the main thing. But then too, just having another year to develop as a leader, I felt could really help me. And I think the off season before my senior year and then my senior year, we put in a lot of time, myself and the other older guys on the team, trying to be the best leaders we can be. And that year was so rewarding for me because I felt that we were the closest team that I'd ever been a part of, grade school sports, high school sports, and then in college, every single season that I had played, that was the closest team. And I made some of my best friends, during last season. So, I don't regret my decision at all. I'm very happy with where I'm at right now. And I feel that I also improved last year. Statistically, I might not have been the best or in some areas, like touchdowns and interceptions. I was down on my touchdowns a little bit, but the job of the quarterback is to help the team win. And, we had the most wins last year in my time at Iowa. Really just happy with how the year went.
Thank you, y'all guys, for that. I'm going ahead and pass it on to whoever's next there.
I like so much similarities that all these dads have talked about, especially our dad's Money and Coach Stanley, about just pushing academics first, and Nate, you saying some of the same stuff that me and Money have said. So it's pretty cool to hear the same story. So, but Money set us up for the good transition to the question. I believe my dad, if you've been following along, he had on some special attire these last couple episodes, and I know, Dad, you wanted to ask this question, so I'll let you go ahead, throw it out there.
Yes, Coach and Nate, got a couple questions, but I want to commend you, Coach. I think we spoke about it in episode 1, about the passion and leadership that we want to, over our kids. And you kind of went the backstory about your dad. And I know my passion was, playing in junior high, playing all 3 sports. But I know I was better at football. But it's just that I had an uncle that came in. His name was Leon Bond Sr. But he couldn't be there 100%. But he told me in the later years how good I could have been. But I didn't have my dad in my life, so I really didn't have that push. So I wanted to do that. So I commend you for that. That's the way I was thinking as well. But my question: we have coached kids. Mike and I have had this conversation when he was getting heavily recruited, trying to keep him local. So when Wisconsin, I'm pretty, from what I know, Wisconsin was after Nate. And this goes for both of you, Nate too. How did y'all make a decision that you would go Iowa? I know you kind of gave me a backstory about the Pitt story, so you can speak on that.
Well, I'll start. When Nate started getting looks, he had an early offer from Pitt from Coach Chris when he was at Pittsburgh, and he was getting a lot of feeler type recruiting. So we went on the camp circuit. We did 4 camps in about 10 days, I think it was. So we went to Pittsburgh, we went to Michigan State, we went to Wisconsin, and we went to Iowa, and all in about a 10-day window. And at that time, Coach Anderson was at Wisconsin, and he didn't give Nate the time of day. Actually, a couple of the assistants that I had coached against, they actually took me aside and said, "Hey, we're going to give him the tour." I don't know if it was behind Coach Anderson's back or not, but I think they knew Nate was a talented kid. Maybe didn't fit Coach Anderson's system, just the way he had envisioned it. But so that's how it kind of got started. But again, I'm going to fall back on this. We raised our kids to have certain values, to have certain ethics about them. And when it came time for Nate to make a decision, I poked and prodded a little bit, but I let him make the decision. I know there was one coach, and I won't name who or where from, but was telling me I needed to make the decision for him. I said, it's the other way around. I've given him the tools to make this decision, and he's going to be the one that lives with that decision. So I'm going to let him make that decision. So I'll let you speak on the rest of it.
Obviously with Pitt being my first offer with Coach Chris, I felt that I had a great relationship with Coach Chris, even through my time at Iowa. I got to interact with him at the Big Ten Media Days a couple times, and we just talk like normal people. With Mason being at Wisconsin, I'd ask him how Mason was doing. Ask him how some of my other teammates that I played high school football with were doing as well. I felt that there was no hard feelings between us. When I chose Iowa. As far as Pittsburgh, I just didn't want to go that far away from home. Growing up in the Midwest, going out to Pittsburgh is totally different, big city living. I just wasn't comfortable in that environment. It has nothing to do with Coach Chris or the football program. Wisconsin, again, I didn't really feel like it was, the right place for me to be. With Coach Anderson, I didn't really get a good feeling from that coaching staff. I know that there was some carryover with the coaching staff, but as far as Coach Anderson went, I just felt that I was more comfortable at Iowa. And then, I didn't feel like anything was going to change my mind. So I committed to Iowa halfway through my junior year, probably. I had told the Iowa coaches about halfway through my junior year, verbally committed to them, and then didn't make it public until after the season. I didn't want to distract my teammates or, anybody. I wanted us to have the best season that we could. could have. And that was, you know, the timing of it all. As far as the reasoning behind that decision, you know, Coach Ferentz is one of the greatest guys you'll ever meet. Him and his wife are amazing. You know, I had a great relationship with the recruiting coordinator for our area, Coach Seth Wallace. He coaches the linebackers at Iowa. And then had a great relationship with the quarterbacks coach as well, and Coach Davis. And my mom's from Central Iowa. My dad's from just across the border in Illinois. So as far as, you know, staying local, it was local for me because I had been the family in Iowa. I had been the family in Illinois, and really probably only an hour and a half away. So I had family closer to me in Iowa City than I would have had if I was in Madison. You know, so that was a huge thing for me. And then just the academics for you know, what I wanted to do was physical therapy if football didn't work out for me. And Iowa has a great PT program and great tracks that lead to that PT program. So, you know, that was another big factor for me.
Yeah, the reason I asked you that is because, you know, Mike and I, you know, I had a similar situation too, where the coaches, Mr. Bond, you need to step in and you need to make it. No. Mike is going to make this decision. We have equipped him with the tools he needs to be, and he made the decision. So that's why I wanted to know the backstory of that, you know. So a lot of local teams wanted him, but I left it up to him. And he's been satisfied with his decision, and I have too. But my second question, Nate, this is for you. I used to come to Menominee to watch the South game and some of the Menominee games. And some of the guys call me Pops when I come up there. And they, Pops, I want you to, you know, come hang out with us after the game. And I told them that's fine. But Mike was a player that had to go over the film after the game. Then he wanted to prepare for next week's game.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I would eventually hang out with the guys, but I always told him we got to do this first. And he was just so focused, you know. And what can you advice can you get a young man to keep you focused when you're in college, because there's so many distractions that you really can get into?
Yeah. For me, the thing that I always kept in mind is what was my ultimate goal. And ever since, you know, I was in kindergarten, my goal was to play in the NFL. And for me to reach that goal, you know, there was things I had to cut out of my life. And, you know, the partying and all that was one of those things. So, you know, it wasn't a very hard decision for me to make because I had that ultimate goal in mind. And I also had great teammates that had the same goals. So, you know, if you can surround yourself with people that have the same mindset as you, you know, and want to reach the same goal, then, you know, those decisions are a lot easier. One of my parents came to every single game from my sophomore year through my senior year, besides my brother's senior day. So I always had family that came to the games. So I just wanted to spend time with them after the games. Iowa City is about 4.5 hours from Menominee. So I didn't get to see them that much. And during the season, you know, you don't get to go home. You don't get, you know, Christmas. You don't get Thanksgiving with your family. So I wanted to take that time and spend it with my family. And, you know, when you have those things that you hold highly in your life, you know, faith, family, and friends, you know, you're going to do everything you can to keep those as close as possible, and cutting out the partying and all the other distractions that come with college. You know, it wasn't that hard of a decision for me to make, you know, because of my faith, because of my family, and then because of the friends that I had that had the same morals as me.
Okay. Coach, I want to thank you. Thank Coach LeBoot every time I see him. And I want to thank you as well, because I know that, you know, for my son to have continual success, you guys taught him some things up there in Menominee, and I really appreciate that. bottom of my heart. I really do.
I think from the sounds of it, I think we reinforced the things that you'd already taught Mike Jr. It was an absolute pleasure working with him as a coach, because just what you described, about the time he would put into film. I've always said I have the perfect job in the perfect place, and it's not because it's geographical. And Coach Bond, you'll attest to this, but every one of our coaches on the varsity staff puts in an immense amount of time in preparation. It's a joy to go into to put together our scouting report on a Sunday afternoon. It's camaraderie, but I know that Mike would put in the time. I know Coach Bundy would put in the time. I know Coach Labuda would put in the time. Everyone, we just have that. It's incredible. If everyone would have a chance in life to experience excellence on that level, and work with people who had that same mindset, this world would be a lot better place. I don't think very many people get that opportunity in life. And I've enjoyed every moment working with Mike and working with our staff. It's been incredible.
Great. That was great. And that's money. That's another thing, man. The time and that it takes to be a coach, man, is crazy. So, that's another thing that I'm pretty sure Coach Stanley could definitely talk to you about as you guys connect. 3 things that I took away from that, and just that dialogue that you guys had with my dad. Nate was talking about not taking the focus away from his team so that they could have a great year. And it really was a great year. Chippewa Falls kind of ruined that for us, but that's okay. I also just read that Nate is a Bears fan, Dad, so he's still a good guy, though. But, he really –
Hey, now you telling me that would have been one of my questions.
So he's loyal to his home soil too, I guess, in that aspect. But
yeah,
Nate, I did want to ask you, man, how, because you don't see that a lot. I can go on Twitter, Money can go on Instagram, Coach Stanley can go on Instagram, my dad can go on Facebook, Uncle Rick can go on Facebook. We can see one decommitment post a day, or we can see one transfer post a day. Like I'm entering the transfer portal. Like that, you can see it, and it doesn't matter which sport. So I know the pressure you were kind of under. I know the influence that you were under. But even with the commitment to Iowa, even with the commitment, like I just read, like myself, I really wasn't partier myself either, But it's kind of hard to avoid Broadway in Menominee. For you didn't go down to downtown to Iowa City, like I read. That wasn't your thing. So just how did you stay committed to the decisions you made just at a young age? Because that is a trait that's missing in our society.
Yeah, I think it really just started with kind of the accountability that I don't want to say forced to have, but asked to have as a kid. It was, if you said you were going to do something, you're going to do it. From the time I was in kindergarten, like my dad said, we had jobs we had to do to help the high school team when I was 5 or 6 years old. And if we didn't get it done, we were going to get our butts kicked or our butts chewed out. So, I think just that accountability, started at a young age. And then, my dad mentioned it earlier, but, the school that I grew up going to, kindergarten through 8th grade was a very, it was a Lutheran school. So it was, preached a lot of morals and being a good person. And unfortunately, a lot of those distractions that you have at college kind of go against those morals. And faith is a big thing in my life. I've been open about it, talking, in the media at Iowa. Even though I'm a football player, my identity is not in football. If football could get taken away from me tomorrow, and I'm gonna be just fine. I think of myself as a good person who's not a football player. I think when you look at it that way, it's pretty easy to keep your eye on the ultimate goal. But then too, just being on campus, you get looks from people, or people ask you to take pictures, or even in my classes. I had a class last fall where my teacher, he didn't really watch sports, and he said, "Nate, I turned on the TV, or I was at my son's birthday party, or his friend's birthday party, and I looked up at the TV and you were just on national television. Like, how do you handle that, or how do you deal with that? And I told him, I said to him, you know, I've got to come here. I've got to do my homework. I got to turn in stuff for your class. I'm a normal kid, just like anybody else. You know, and I think too, growing up in the town that I grew up in, and being around the people that I grew up with, you know, they kept me in check. So they made sure I didn't get a big head, and you know, kept me grounded. So, you know, it all comes back to those morals that you have growing up, and you know, I got a lot of that through my parents, and then through my faith, and then my friends as well.
You were definitely like that since I can remember 8th grade, before I even coached you, just a referee at the middle school games that I would do. Like, you were also always like that. So I'm not gonna freeze Uncle Rick out no more, because he has great knowledge. This dude is a great sports fan too. So Uncle Rick, man, join in on the conversation. Whatever you want to ask, go ahead.
All right, I'm ready. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, Nate and Dad Jay, for taking time out in your evening to interview with us today on Listen Son Sports Podcast. Moving right along with my question. My question is, you know, I'm big on training, getting in shape, and staying in shape, actually. And the question is mainly for Nate, but Dad, you can jump anytime you're ready. But with the pandemic now and the coronavirus, and going to the next level, what are you doing different? How's it affecting your training and your preparation for, you know, to be the best that you can be?
Yeah, so I think just kind of starting in January, you know, I built up a good base, you know, in January and February. I went out to New Jersey to work with a quarterback coach. He's affiliated with a company that does combine prep. So I got a lot of good insight and techniques and tips on, you know, what to work on, you know, certain, you know, kind of phases of strength training that they do. And then my coaches at Iowa, they're nice enough to continue to let us work out through the spring, and through pro day, which obviously we weren't able to have. But the one thing that I always got from Iowa was Coach Doyle and all the other strength coaches, they weren't just working you out. They were teaching you how to work out, and making sure that you understood what was happening. That was my perception of it. And with what I went to school for, you know, all that stuff really interested me. So I was asking questions whenever I could on, you know, what's the science behind this, and what's going on, you know, in your body, and what's the reasoning behind what they're doing. You know, not in a confrontational way. I just genuinely wanted to know. So then obviously now with all the stuff that's happened, and I've been able to use that knowledge that I gained at Iowa to kind of, you know, continue on with the programming. And then too, the coaches are still open to us asking them questions, or for the first 2 months that everything was shut down, they gave us workout cards to follow. So they were still programming workouts for us, you know, because that's just the type of people that they are. They want us to continue to succeed. But then also too, we got a big hill in my backyard, and I've been running that to stay safe, and you know, just doing all the drills that I can do to make sure that I'm in football shape, not just in shape.
He's been running that hill in the backyard for a long time before he went to Iowa. Sometimes there was a little discipline involved with the number of No, I think, you know, just to add a little bit to what Nate said, programming, strength training, conditioning, speed training, agility training, that's something that's fascinated me since I was an athlete in middle school. And I had an uncle who was a Phi Ed teacher. So that's all part of the 20 different things I wanted to do when I was, you know, going on to college. But also, you mentioned at the beginning of this question that with the pandemic, this is a great time for everybody to be working out, especially, you know, the better shape that you're in, the better you can handle this COVID-19 if you were to get it. So from a personal perspective, March 1st, I was 282 pounds. Today I'm 242 because I took the opportunity away from school to start walking every day. You know, I had a little more free time where I could be flexible and teach my classes on Zoom. Okay, I got an hour. I can go out and walk 3.5 miles in an hour, you know, and get that done. Do a little strength training in the basement. So I would encourage everybody right now to use this as an opportunity and mental health wise as well. You know, I think it's an opportunity, whether it's a jump rope or, you know, you throw on a YouTube video on a David Goggins workout, you know, or something like that. Mentally, physically, spiritually, you can get stronger in these unprecedented times, you know. So that's my 2 cents worth on that question.
Yeah, I think the last part too, for me, it was a big emphasis on my diet. So from January 1st until the end of February, I dropped 24 pounds of body fat and gained 4 pounds of muscle, just because I cleaned up my diet. Obviously, I was working out a lot too, but a lot of people don't realize that you can burn a lot of calories, but you can eat a lot of calories too. So if you can clean up your diet, you know, figure out, you know, what diet works best for you, whether it's keto, whether it's, you know, paleo, vegan, whatever it is, find out what works best for you, and then, you know, stick to it. So.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Oh, another question for you. I just heard you as a Bears fan. You going to take it easy on them in the season?
No, so that allegiance, it's the second I got that phone call, so it's no longer true.
He was indoctrinated by me because I grew up watching Walter Payton every Sunday. And we watched a legend like that as a young man. The grace that he had, not only as a football player, but as a person. You know, they call the Walter Payton Man of the Year award for a reason. I got goosebumps right now just thinking about watching him run the football. So that's why he was a Bears fan. So.
Thanks, guys, for sharing that. That's some good stuff.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you.
And I got a quick question real quick. I know coming back into it. It's for you, Nate. Because you basically had what every kid, every college, high school, anybody that dreams about that plays sports, you got to hear your name called. Like, can you tell us how you felt about that when you got that call and everything? Like, what was that feeling like?
It was relief for sure. So through the whole process, I had talked to a few teams. You know, a couple teams told me, hey, like anywhere from the 4th to the 7th round, like be ready for us to call your name. And then one team in particular was like, hey, if you're still there in the 4th round, like you're our guy. We're gonna take you like 4th or 5th round. And then they ended up drafting a different quarterback. So it was just super stressful up until the point where I got that call. And then, you know, it was relief. And to go to a team like the Vikings, super close to home, a great, you know, team, great offensive coordinator. There's a cool connection with that. So Gary Kubiak played for Coach Davis, who was the quarterback's coach that recruited me at Iowa. So I thought that was a cool connection. And you know, another cool thing was on the way to the combine, I flew from Iowa City to Minneapolis and then Minneapolis to Indianapolis. And I was on the same flight with all the Minnesota Vikings staff from Minneapolis to Indianapolis. So, you know, it was kind of cool to have it come full circle in that sense. And yeah, but that feeling right away was just relief because, you know, it was, you know, the realization that the dreams come true, but, you know, there's a lot of work left to be done, and I'm excited for what the future holds.
Thank you for that.
Money, can I jump in when you get done? Money, I gotta speak on this when you get done.
Oh yeah, can you go ahead? I got one question from after that, and we can wrap it up.
Okay, Coach, true story. My neighbor is a Minnesota Vikings fan, and I'm a Packers fan. Up to Minnesota for years. I wouldn't go. finally he said, well, I'll tell you what, if I buy the tickets, would you come? I said, well, I don't want you to lose your money, so I guess I gotta go. So he bought tickets. He bought tickets for the wives, so we all went up to the game. That was the year Aaron Rodgers got hurt right away, first quarter.
Anthony Barr.
But yeah. But he asked me, did I want to drive? I said, well, he's from Minnesota, so I said, no. Since you're from Minnesota, I just relax because I do a lot of driving anyway. I told my wife, I said, why didn't I drive? I would leave right after Rodgers got hurt. So I told my neighbor, I said, man, I would never, ever come to Minnesota again for any game. So the moral of the story is to say never. You know where Mike is coaching now.
Yeah.
So I've been up there for the last 2 years. So Nate, congratulations, man. I will support you, and I hope everything work out for you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm gonna come back to my question. So, you know, you've been at Iowa. Who's the biggest game for you, Nebraska or Iowa State?
I would say Iowa State, just because of the amount of kids on our roster that were from Iowa. You know, they grew up with that rivalry, and just the intensity, you know, of those games is crazy. Whenever we'd walk into the stadium at Iowa State, you know, I remember specifically there was they couldn't have been older than like 10 or 12 years old, but these little kids were driving our buses in and they're giving us the finger. Like, it's like, how can it be that crazy? But just the raw emotion that you see of your teammates, you know, in that series, you know, it's something special. And, you know, celebrating in the locker room with them after those games, that's what makes those games so special. You know, and that's why I would have to say Iowa State over Nebraska, even though the Nebraska rivalry is a pretty good one as well.
All right. Yeah, I had to ask. I lived in both states. I had to ask.
Yeah.
I can tell you, as a spectator going to those games, it's crazy. You can't park within 4 or 5 miles of the stadium when Iowa State comes to Kinnick or vice versa. Nebraska, you can park a block and a half away in one of the parking ramps, but it's absolutely crazy because the whole state seems to show up for the Iowa State game.
Yeah, Iowa get the most hate. I learned that.
Yeah. Good question, Money. We kind of got about like 10 minutes left, so I'm trying to squeeze in as much as we can within this 10 minutes. But we're doing good with content. I love it. The energy so far between all of it. I was gonna ask you, Nate. You know, how did you know? Some games you probably threw more interceptions than you like. You know, you never want to throw interceptions. I get that, but you know, it was tough. Of course, you play quarterback. You don't want to give the defense, you know, that satisfaction. But from what you didn't talk about so much on this podcast, I already understand how you got through those moments. So I'm gonna leave that alone. What I do want to talk about is the cool tradition you guys have at Iowa with the hospital and, you know, the acknowledgement of that and the relationship you probably built with those people over there. Your dad kind of talked about physical health and mental health. You know, just how fortunate we all are, you know, to be in the position we are in. So talk about what that experience did for you to be a part of something special like that.
Yeah. You know, first and foremost, I think the cool thing about the Wave is in the off season, we go over to the Children's Hospital and visit some of those kids. And my dad's tearing up right now, and I am too, just thinking about it because, you know, you create relationships with those kids. You know, if you see them 1 or 2 times over in the hospital, like, you make their day. And we always had kid captains, and I always made it a point to know the kid captain's name and like say, hey John, like, have a good day, you know, like enjoy the game and you know, make it as personable as possible. And when you get to go over and see those kids and then realize, you know, that you can brighten their day for 3 or 4 hours, you know, it gives you a new perspective on how lucky you are to to play a game when they're over there fighting for their life, and all you have to do is just go play football for 3 hours. Like there's no greater feeling than knowing that you can help them out in the hardest time of their life. So it's definitely emotional, and it's very special to be a part of it. And I think one of the coolest things is that any team that we play, they participate in it as fully as we do. So that's something that, yes, we're trying to beat each other on the field, but we can all come together and celebrate something like that and join and make their day, and help them forget about what they're going through for a little while.
Yeah. Coach Stanley, do you want? Yeah.
Yeah. I got super emotional, not just the first time we were fortunate to have Nate there when it happened for the first time. I'm getting goosebumps big time on this, but every time is special because it's a different kid up there looking out that window. And it also, one of the things I encouraged Nate to do, even when we were in the recruiting process and he chose Iowa, I'm like, you got a children's hospital right there. And I know that they've talked about visiting. I said, you take every advantage of doing that, because I wanted him to understand how lucky he was. And also how lucky he could be to reach out and have a purpose of influencing these young kids' lives, and their, potential impacting their emotional state so that they would have a better chance of recovery. So it was a beautiful thing all the way around, 360. Just having him be able to not only wave, on a Saturday afternoon, but also to visit those kids and understand where they were coming from and how special it was for them.
Yeah. That's a part of servant leadership, and I'm glad you guys do that, man. That's very important. And I want to touch into another subject because, it is important. We know the way our society has gone. We know some of the stories that have come out with different programs, and we're not here to talk about those stories or those things that's going on. What I wanted us to talk about is, it's probably no secret, that you don't get a lot of, African Americans coming through Menominee. You just don't. So to have me as a coach, to have Kevin Perkins as a teammate, to have JP, the indigenous guy that, the Native American quarterback back in the day that, was helping with the team and things like that, played on the team. How was it important to have those relationships for you to, build those for the rest of your life? You know what I mean?
Yeah. For me, it was always just another perspective. My personal opinion is the less groupthink and the more ideas you can get onto a subject, the better you're going to be. So although, Kevin's, reality might not have been the same as what yours was because he grew up in Menominee. It's always great to get to interact with people from different cultures and understand, how they think and what's going on. And I definitely think even those limited interactions that I had growing up helped me when I went to Iowa, because I had some teammates that came into Iowa and they had never had a black teammate or an African American, or Filipino teammate like JP was. So it definitely helped me a lot. But at the same time, going from where I had 1 or 2 black teammates to having 35, 40% of the team that was black, it was definitely still hard for me. The way people talk is different. The word choice is different. And, I remember thinking to myself, my first year at Iowa, there was, some derogatory terms that, if it was spoken by one group of people, it's derogatory, and it's in other people's vernacular. I remember being really uncomfortable with it. And, it's just something that over time you get more comfortable with. So it definitely was hard, but at the same time, I just tried to sit back and take it in and try to understand and listen, much like we have to do right now. So it was hard at first going into Iowa, but, looking back on it, some of my best friends are black guys that were on the team. Black coaches that were on the team. You know, you interact with all different types of people, and I think it makes you a better person in the long run.
Sir, good, great answer, great answer. Coach Stanley, I know you wanted to say, I wanted to ask you, what do you think athletes need more of? You know, you've been coaching a long time. You've seen a lot of things happen, and sort like my dad and Uncle Rick, they've seen a lot of stuff too. So, what do you think athletes need? You know, the most.
I'm very grateful you invited us on today, just because I think the message of that you're trying to promote with this podcast, it's right on the money. You know, so many young men today do not have fathers, and one of the things we constantly harp on, you know, in our football practices, I would say 3 to 4 times a week, we want you to be good young men. We want you to be good husbands and good fathers, and to have the skills to do so, to have the skills to work through difficult times with a spouse, you know, later in life. And to me, ultimately, it's a real thin line you have to walk as an educator in a public school, because really it comes down to faith, and it comes down to having God in your life or not having God in your life. If you have God in your life, you have a solid foundation. You have a rock, you know, that's not going to waver. It's not going to change. And so, I mean, there are some ways where, you know, technically separation of church and state, we're not supposed to openly, you know, preach the gospel. But there are ways to get a kid to open up, you know, and ask the questions, I guess, that need to be asked, so that they invite you into expressing your faith and sharing your faith and witnessing. You know, to me, those are the things I'm most proud of as a coach. Going back to Money's question about, you know, coaching and stuff, that's the purpose. It's a different type of ministry. I had a very important coach who incidentally was, I started my coaching and teaching career in DeKalb County, Georgia, which is like the eastern metro Atlanta. And Curtis Frazier was a basketball coach that I worked under, a Black man, one of the finest men I've ever known. And, you know, he told me, he says, if you're going to do this job well, you have to have a missionary zeal. Like every day you're going out like the Apostle Paul, and you're trying to win souls. And, you know, I didn't really understand fully what he meant at that moment in time, but as I've grown, matured as a coach, boy, I think about him every day, every single day. And yeah, he's just a great man, a great mentor, great role model. And a lot of things I'm teaching today to younger coaches is the same things that he taught me as a very young coach. So number one, I'd say God in your life, faith in your life. And then kind of the peripheral things that come along with that is the persistence to run a good race. You know, kids want to give up today when things get tough. And that really bothers me personally. And I know a lot of them are going through tougher things at home than what you could see, you know, but I went through those things too. And that's, again, you know, coming full circle why my basketball coach led me into coaching. Persistence, work ethic, I think those are things that are becoming dumbed down, because I think part of what's replacing fathers are these things right here. And the kids, you know, that's where they find their comfort. That's their security blanket. And a lot of times there's a lot of evil in that thing. So everything comes easy, and they can get into some real bad things, you know, with their links and so forth. So yeah, it comes back to God, though. It comes back to having Christ in your life.
Yes, sir. Thank you for sharing that. I know, Nate, I know you didn't talk that much when I was there. I thought you was like Mike Winchell when you were at Menominee, like from Friday Night Lights. You know, you didn't really say much, but thank you for embracing me. And it's some guys that I still, you know, of course, me and Rhett, because we both at CSP right now. Evan Hughesby, I still talk to. Alex Finnan, I still talk to. So, you know, I know Money has been a part of some communities where, you know, he has had to, you know, step outside the box and, you know, everything like that. And he's close to some different teammates. So, like Coach Stanley said, man, this is definitely what it's about. And it's tremendous to have this impact. And I just thank you guys for, you know, embracing myself and things like that. So, As we always finish up. So yeah, like we always do, we're gonna have a listen some moment, but I'm gonna pass it to Money to kind of wrap up the show, and then he's gonna give it to Coach Stanley. So go ahead, Money.
All right, we want to thank us, and we just ask y'all to like, subscribe, and comment anything, and we're just gonna pass it on to Coach Stanley to finish it up for us.
You know, I would to just give 2 cents worth of advice to you sons and fathers out there as well. The biggest thing I would say is that you're not going to find happiness and fulfillment in anything that's monetary. You're not going to find it in fame. You're not going to find it in being drafted in the 1st round or the 7th round. You're going to find it in finding your purpose. And I would hope that as young men, when you father a child, that you become part of that young man's life, and that you shape and mold him into what you would love for him to become. And purpose, in my view, the greatest purpose of all is your relationship with Jesus Christ. And if you get into your Bible, you will find all the secrets to raising good sons. I think it's in Ephesians that says, if a son asks for a fish, what father would give him a snake? And you're going to find strength that you never believed you had to be a great father. You're going to find your purpose. And I've been blessed to be a coach, to not only be a father to my son, but in several ways. I always tell my offensive linemen, my position that I coach, that you're all my sons. Just not biological sons. So I'm blessed with a purpose that I've come to really understand in life. And I pray that you all would find your purpose. And one of the greatest purposes that you can have is to raise good young men. So with that, I want to say thank you to all of you guys for having us on today. It's been a blessing for both of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Here. Thank you. That's our Listen Son moment, and that's going to conclude this episode. So we thank everybody.